episode 4, let's jump straight in. So once they were safely out of sight, Ungoliant kind of decided that she was done playing nice now. And she turned on Morgoth and she demanded that he hand over all of the jewels that he'd stolen from Fëanor. See, after gorging herself on the light of the two trees and then soaking up a good chunk of Morgoth's power, she'd sort of grown into this like just absolute unit. She's massive, terrifying, stronger than ever, like ultimate goth mommy vibes. Morgoth, on the other hand, he was just kind of running on fumes at this point, and for the first time ever, I think, he was actually quite scared. He wasn't strong enough to fight her off, and he just grudgingly gave up the lesser jewels one by one, and Ungoliant, she just gobbled them down like they were those really like Moorish. What's Moorish? When you're a kid, those little biscuits with the icing, what are they called? I don't know. Anyway, you know what I mean, with a polar bear on the packet. Anyway, when it came to the Silmarils, he's not game. Those were his, and he clutched them tight, and he just flat out refused. He's not sharing, not budging. Ungoliant, she didn't take that well. She was furious. She spun webs around him and she trapped him and she tortured him and she was getting ready to finish him off for good. And then just when it looked like she'd win, Morgoth, he let out this cry. It was so desperate and loud that it just echoed all the way through the stones of Angband. And someone heard. So from the depths comes Gothmog, Lord of the Balrogs. I'm trying to make this as exciting as possible. Leading like there's a fiery crew behind him. Whips cracking, flames roaring. That my attempt at excitement now has gone out the window. Anyway, they drove Ungoliant off just in time, saving Morgoth's skin, and he dragged himself back to Angband. He was battered and bruised, but he was alive. And there, in his dark fortress, he forged a crown of iron to hold the 3 Silmarils. But Morgoth's grip on the jewels and on power, it was far from secure, because somewhere out there, Fëanor was just burning with fury, and he was not done. So picture this. Morgoth, he decides to rebuild his fortress. And while he's at it, he kind of discovers that some elves, they're still hanging out in Middle-earth. And you've got Elu Thingol and all of his sort of like little posse with him. I tried to avoid crew and ended up with posse. Christ, I'm showing my age. The Sindar, they're chilling in their cozy little woodland realm of Doriath. Now, meanwhile, Círdan and the Telerai sea elves, they're just like hanging out in a place called Falas. And Denethor and the Nandor, they're camping out in Osiriand. Hopefully I can find a map that outlines all of this. Fingers crossed. Naturally, Morgoth, he can't resist just stirring the pot. It's what he does best, right? And he declares war on Thingol, just, because he's a bit bored, surrounding Doriath and cutting off the Elven king from Círdan. So he's kind of like lost all of his backup at this point. But Thingol's quite a resourceful guy, so he manages to get in touch with Denethor for backup. Cue the Nandor teaming up with the Sindar to take on Morgoth's orcs in this showdown between the rivers Aros and Gelion. But guess what? The orcs, they're caught like deer in the headlights, and they just get completely wrecked in the first battle. In their panic, the orcs, they try and flee north, only to run into Norgrim, who are just kind of like ready to serve up some more defeat. As for the orcs attacking Círdan, well, they have a bit more luck, and they do push the Telerai all the way back to the shoreline, just kind of leaving them like backed up against the sea. Morgoth, he then faced some serious challenges with Fëanor and his crew. Why do I keep saying crew? When they rolled into Middle-earth, they settled down at Mithrim, but Morgoth just wasn't having it. He launched this really quick attack, hoping to kind of kick them out before they got too comfy and turned into a real threat. But these elves, they just come from Aman, and they had like this really like kind of like a spark in their eyes. The orcs were terrified, and the elves, they swept through them like leaves in the wind. Fëanor, he even chased them all the way to Thangorodrim and the gates of Angband. But Morgoth then sent out Gothmog and his Balrogs to crash the party. I'd love to do this is a side note, interjecting my own thoughts here, but I would love to do a video on Gothmog. So if you're down for that, pop a little like fire emoji in my comments. That way new people will be like, wow, this video is hot, but really you just want more Gothmog. That's a cool plan. That's a good plan, right? Anyway, Fëanor met his end, but at least the Balrogs were pushed back. I've really summarised that in like a very, very big nutshell. The Falas were freed, and while Morgoth had practically lost Beleriand, he took some solace in the fact that Fëanor was out of the picture. In comes Fingolfin. Now, along with his sons and the sons of Finafrin, marching right up to the gates of Angband, but they couldn't push any further. As the elves started to build, or I guess rebuild, their kingdoms in Middle-earth, Morgoth decided to just bide his time for 60 years before making his next move. That's when Dagor Aglareb, or the Glorious Battle, kicked off. And it was a big win for the elves. Fingolfin and Maedhros, who's Fëanor's eldest, they teamed up to fend off Morgoth, and then they set up something called the Siege of Angband, making sure Morgoth, he stayed kind of like stuck in his fortress. Wow, my neighbour is now evidently deciding to cut a tree down. I'm so sorry if you can hear that. How inconvenient. Little did they know, though, a darker threat was brewing in the shadows. One that would, I guess, test their courage and change the fate of Middle-earth forever. What sinister plans was Morgoth hatching? And would the elves, I guess, would they be ready for the storm that was just about to descend upon them? I'm trying to make this dramatic with the chainsaw going off outside. I think that's a great point to stop. Anyway, don't forget the fire emojis if you're after Gothmog. If not, just please do all those things you need to do to support my tiny channel, and I hope to see you in the next video.